The authorities in Russia and Ukraine are both reporting fresh attacks on their capital cities. In Kyiv, multiple explosions were heard across the city. There have also been other attacks across the country, including Zaporizhia and Dnipro. Meanwhile, the mayor of Moscow says 600 Ukrainian drones targeted the region overnight. Our Ukraine correspondent Dan Johnson reports from Kyiv.
Russia has shown once again it can strike at the heart of Kyiv and at the fundamental foundations of Ukrainian life. This was a market hit in the early hours. There were injuries here, but somehow no deaths. Each of these stalls supported someone's tiny individual business, their livelihood, and something they loved. It's really hard, Luba says, describing the loss of her vinyl records. It's like nurturing a child for 8 years, investing in it, and then all of a sudden you just lose it.
Russia says it was targeting sites that are linked to supplying the military, the armed forces, but this was a marketplace selling second-hand books and posters, records, bric-a-brac. And I know that because I was here myself 1 week ago. I saw the families who filled this place looking for a bargain.
Lilia came here to salvage something from the ashes.
Books are saving us, and losing this is like losing our hearts.
I'm sorry. It's okay, I'm sorry.
In Ukraine's east, Russia launched more attacks and released this footage claiming to target more military supply facilities. But a man and a woman in their 60s were killed when a home was destroyed in Zaporizhia. Ukraine's response has reached further into Russia, and the Wildberries online retailer was again its target. Moscow's mayor said Ukraine launched 600 drones last night. There have been thousands over recent months. And now we know these were among them. British-made drones fired by the Ukrainians towards Russian oil refineries. Ukraine says it is having success in that, but still its skies are vulnerable, meaning lives are at risk here, and the way of life is also under threat. Dan Johnson, BBC News in Kyiv.
And Dan joins us now from Kyiv. And Dan, once again we're seeing civilians, their homes, businesses, all casualties in this conflict.
Russia keeps reiterating that it is targeting military sites or factories and warehouses that are supplying the Ukrainian armed forces, but it is either deliberately or mistakenly hitting civilian homes and places like that marketplace that was destroyed. No one was killed there, but the impact is enormous. People were crying there, telling us how much they value that, how important a place it is to them. And the attack on something like a second-hand bookstore really goes to the heart of what Ukrainians feel the Russians are trying to do to their identity right across this country. And their skies are still vulnerable. The lack of Patriot interceptors means that ballistic missiles can still get through Ukraine's air defences and cause that sort of devastation and destruction. And there are hundreds of drones being fired every night by the Russians that are having a major impact too.
And we've had confirmation for the first time that British drones are being used by Ukraine.
Yes, this is significant, but not necessarily new. We haven't had this confirmed until now, but it appears for the last 6 months, British-made drones from 2 different companies have been part of the wave of long-range deep strikes that Ukraine has launched against Russian oil refineries, but also logistics warehouses, naval bases, and some of the transport infrastructure across Russia. The impact of those strikes involving the British drones is estimated to be around £35 billion in terms of the hit to the Russian economy. And we're talking about sites that are up to 1,000 miles from the Ukrainian border, so deep into Russia. This is all part of the deliberate strategy the Ukrainians have taken of trying to disrupt Russia's military supply chains, but also impacting the economy and making the Russian people feel the same sort of impact of this conflict that's been brought home so often, so regularly, so starkly to Ukrainians.
Dan, thank you very much. Dan Johnson in Kyiv. Peter Zalmayev is the director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative, and he joins us now. Thank you for joining us here on BBC News. How would you characterise the conflict at the moment?
Well, the conflict, of course, has grown into a full-blown war of attrition. There's I wouldn't say a stalemate at the front lines. Russia is still slowly advancing, but, you know, Ukraine has had recently quite successful counterattacks, and Zelensky announced that the 26 towns in the southeast of Ukraine have been liberated. And so, having said that, still, the progress on the battlefield does not satisfy either of the sides. And so we see both sides now concentrating on the economic might of the other side to try to diminish its ability to continue feeding its war machine. And, Russia, we see, has been doing it quite indiscriminately. Also keeping in mind that, Russia has been trying to target these cultural objects and cultural things of significant cultural value to Ukrainians as part of its what I would call cultural genocide of Ukrainians. And once again, another big book market has been hit throughout the war. Ukraine has lost several printing houses, losing millions of books to Russian missiles.
How important has Ukraine's technical ingenuity been, particularly in terms of drone warfare?
That's pretty much what you said. Technical ingenuity is the only thing that's allowed Ukraine to continue resisting almost fifth year into this war, after a majority of experts predicted that Ukraine would not have much to go on, considering that Ukraine has had issues with its recruitment. Russia remains the preponderant power when it comes to manpower in the battlefield, etc. So it's precisely the Ukrainian drones that Ukraine has been able to harness this new technology in cooperation with its Western allies that has allowed it to continue to stay in the game, once again confounding a majority of experts who, if you remember, early on in the war were quite skeptical that Ukraine would hold up for anything longer than a week. Then they said they gave it a few months, then at most a year. Ukraine is still very much in the game and making it a very painful proposition for Putin to continue his war of aggression.
Peter Salmayev from the Eurasia Democracy Initiative, thank you for talking to us.